Action.
Okay.
How's it look?
It's fine. Okay. Intro.
Hi, and welcome to the second edition of the Jersey Pawn Podcast. Keith Sandilands with Bernard Singoli of Pawndingo Pawn Shop and Adrian Fantone of Pawndingo as well. And in this second edition, there's a few things we want to cover. We want to talk about place and this area and why it's just so interesting in terms of culture and history, how history relates to today. We want to talk about items. We want to spotlight a very interesting item that we have in the shop. And also we want to talk about some recent news that's been going on with Pawndingo. And we want to get it all in there. Before this show happened, I was talking with Bernie, and he was filling me in on all this amazing history about Paterson right down the street. And Bernie, what were you saying about Paterson and kind of a lot of the inventions that happened there in the early 1900s?
Yeah, Paterson was a very large mecca for the Industrial Revolution. It started sometimes during the lifetime of Alexander Hamilton. He visited Paterson. He saw that it was so unique, especially the falls, now called the Great Falls. And he thought and dreamed that this could be a hydroelectric power city, just like in Canada. And he also envisioned that there'd be become a mecca for industrial, and it did become a mecca for industrial revolution. As a matter of fact, it was the industrial capital of the world. So many people from foreign lands, especially in Europe, the Italians, the Germans, the Jews, the Polish, the Yugoslavians, the Russians even, came and migrated to New Jersey and brought with them to Paterson and brought with them all their backgrounds and skills, from machine shops to chemistry to whatever you can imagine that they worked with in the early days. And they all came to New Jersey, and Paterson was the place. And one interesting thing, which we'll go into in another segment. Today we're going to talk about something very interesting, Colt. It is Colt Revolver, one of the largest manufacturers of guns in the world. But we're going to have other segments for the sake of argument. In the beginning, one gentleman from the Orient brought one silkworm to Paterson, and from that silkworm, he continued to multiply them to turn into a city becoming called the Silk City, the biggest silk producer in the world. And unfortunately, over the years, they lost their position. And we'll explain about that as we go forward. But right now we're going to talk about the place. We are actually in Totowa, New Jersey, just a stone's throw from Paterson. And most of our friends and employees and people that come here and customers come from the Paterson area, which includes Little Falls, Woodland Park, Totowa, Cedar Grove, as well as many others in the area. And there's a tremendous amount of heritage. Matter of fact, a lot of these people bring in items that are in their basement, and they never knew what it was because it belonged to their grandfathers that have passed away, and these things are all stored away. Lots and lots of items that were produced in New Jersey, as well as Paterson and other suburban areas. And today we want to talk about the Colt Revolver.
Absolutely. And then just another point that I made earlier, I made a remark to Adrian, that it's funny how today we're so, stuck in this technology and innovation where it has to be, this software, this new product. But the technology of Paterson back in the day was the worm that came over here, and that was what sparked all this innovation, all this industry around it. And it's interesting how that is what drove commerce in this area and produced the label of the Silk City. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be this physical new product or this, that. It maybe just be taking something that is in another place, like China, for instance. Where China came from?
Yeah. Well, basically what happened here is that everyone came here, and the technologies that they had basically were basic technologies, as I said before. Machine shop, screen printing, the man with the silkworm. There was also cars manufactured here in New Jersey, believe it or not. There was also companies that sold aerospace equipment. So it was a lot of base technologies. But over the years, as Paterson unfortunately decayed, people moved. They moved west. They went to the West Coast. And all that technology was brought west. And we kind of lost our place in history. However, we'll talk about some of the things that did happen. Today we're going to talk about Samuel Colt. Samuel Colt started his manufacturing plant in a very unique place in Paterson. The building that he occupied was actually on the site where the Paterson Central High School was built. It's very close to my heart. I graduated at Paterson Central. And the colt was our symbol. However, we didn't use the gun, we used the horse, because they didn't want to have a gun to symbolize our high school. However, we all knew about Colt. It was very interesting. He migrated to a plant as the falls became electrified with the turbines. He moved to a plant right behind the falls, and then he got into a little bit of trouble. He came up with a Colt 45. It's called the Colt Paterson. It's the best gun that was ever made, and it kind of won the West. But he got into a little bit of financial troubles. I don't really know exactly what happened, but he went bankrupt, and he moved to Connecticut, because the Connecticut people saw, the government funded him. They saw that his background was unique, and he could probably produce more if he had some funding. He sold off a lot of his parts, and other guys put the parts together and actually built his gun. However, they did it indiscriminately, mismatching the serial numbers, which caused these guns not to be worth what a Colt Paterson is worth. A Colt Paterson today, in very good condition, could be worth $20,000, so or more. So what happened? These gentlemen from Colt broke off from Colt when he went bankrupt, and they moved to Newark, and they came up with a company called Manhattan Arms. The government was in deep trouble needing these things for the Navy. Colt had a contract, and he could not produce them, unfortunately, during his bankruptcy problem. So these gentlemen set up Manhattan Arms and built the exact gun, the Colt 45. It looks the same. Unless you examine it, you'll find that it's a Manhattan Arms. I have one here. Maybe Adrian wants to pick it up and show us what we got here. Yeah, this revolver, you'll see it looks just like a Colt. And it was produced in the Navy. The Navy didn't care. The government said, okay, I know Colt has a patent, but we don't care. Just produce this. We need it so bad. It was 1859. The Civil War was coming around, and there was a lot of uprising, and they needed this particular pistol to arm the Navy personnel. So Manhattan Arms built it, and this is it's a very good replica, in very good condition. This thing, because it's an early one, could be worth about $2,500 today, versus a real Colt Paterson, which should be worth a lot more. That's a little bit about that, Keith. I mean, I don't know. But Adrian, you want to say something about the store and what we do here?
Well, basically, he kind of summed it all up. If you ever were in the market and wanted to purchase such an item, you are more than welcome to come check out our online store as well. You can reach it through the Pawndingo.com. And we have this item and a lot of great other items up for sale.
Yeah. And basically we have a lot of stuff from the Civil War. Be surprised. We have bullets, we have knives, we have swords. There's a lot of interesting things in our shop. And a lot of the reason, you'll be surprised, even though we're in the Paterson area, a lot of the gentlemen that were in the Civil War came home. They went to the war, came back, and brought back a lot of interesting items. And what we're finding, really, to make a long story short, we find treasures in people's homes. And we turn their junk into treasures. And it really is interesting. You'll never know what comes in, because these people have such background and heritage. They'll bring in knives. They'll bring in coffee grinders. They'll bring in lamps. They'll bring in cash registers. They'll bring things from the 19th century. And really, sometimes they don't know what it is. And we look it up, we find out what they are, we bring in experts. These people astound how much money they can get. There's something they're ready to throw in the garbage can. That's a little bit about what we do here in the store. And we're open from 10 in the morning to 6 in the evening, mostly every day, Tuesday through Saturday. We're off on Sunday and Monday. And I think that kind of sums up a little bit. We have a lot of other items that we'll talk about in the future. And Keith, you have some ideas on our marketing and what we're doing and how we're getting people to understand what we have.
Yeah, I mean, and Bernie, his vision for the Pawndingo Pawn Shop is to strive, as you said, to be the pawn shop of the 21st century. And really, Bernie mentioned marketing, but it's not really so much marketing, it's more of storytelling. We want to just tell the story, because there really is a bunch of different facets to this pawn business, and all the different things and different ways that a consumer can interact with it, and how they can use it to get not only the best deals on anything they're looking for, because like you were telling me before, Bernie, that people will come through and you have the opportunity to get things at a low cost, and then you can pass that discount, pass that deal on to the consumer.
The idea is economy is not good today. A lot of people are looking for items that are very expensive. I mean, a new camera could cost you like $700, SLR, so to speak. But here, we buy them from people that don't want them anymore, and then we resell them at a very low price. So we make a small margin, the customer that buys it is very happy, and the person who sells it so it's a win-win situation. Just like diamond rings, small diamond rings. Couples come in here, they can't spend $4,000 or $5,000. They want to get married, but they don't want to spend that kind of money. So they buy something here that's been used, polished, repaired, in perfect condition, and they buy that for maybe $1,000. They save a lot of money, and they're very happy. And again, the person who sold it, they probably found it in their basement or somewhere in their house, which belonged to a parent or a grandparent who passed away. And they're very happy. They get a couple of dollars for it. We don't try to lowball them, but we give them what the market can buy. We buy it at wholesale and we sell at retail, half of retail. It's very interesting. So one more thing. I want Adrian to talk a little bit about some of the sports things that we do. That's something, an area that's very interesting. We have a lot of interesting sport things, and we have one here from a local guy by the name of Plaxico Burris. We have one of his worn shirts. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what we have here in sports, because you're good in sports.
Yeah, one day we had actually the gentleman that he was just speaking about, Plaxico Burris. You might know him from his Super Bowl winning catch with the Giants, Super Bowl, the first one against the Patriots, where they stunned millions. He actually came to the store one day. He's from town. He's a local guy.
He's my neighbor.
Yeah, it's funny enough. He shares, a house between here and Florida. So when he's here, he does drop by every now and then. We became friendly with him, and he dropped off this jersey. That, for instance, is another thing that we're going to have up on the site, and it's from his own personal collection that might be of interest to people. It's actually a Pittsburgh jersey, though, so it's sorry for all those Giants fans out there who just got their hopes up. But we have that. We have a bunch of other Giants stuff, too. I know it's the local team in the area. I'm a Cowboys fan. I hope that doesn't deter anyone from coming into the shop, but hey, I'm just being honest still. I could take care of you with all the Giants stuff, too, you need. So, hey, if you're in it, we got it.
We also like to work with old baseball cards.
Yes.
The older baseball cards from the 50s and 60s have value, and we appreciate people coming in with them. We like to evaluate what they can do, as well as coins. We do coins, gold, silver. We do a lot of things in the shop. I think if you look at our online store, you might have a very good idea of what we have. And if you have anything similar, drop on down, say hello. We'll be very happy to evaluate what you have at no charge. And if we like it and we can sell it, or it's something I like or my wife likes, maybe we'll keep it. But don't hesitate to come down. If you need a loan, if you need a couple bucks, and you have something to collateralize with, we'll be very happy to help you. If you have something to sell, and you want to get rid of that you've had for a while, you don't want to have it use it anymore, and you're moving, we'll be happy to evaluate and give you an order. If you have something that you want to buy, you're welcome to browse and cruise our store. We're very happy to meet you, and we'll treat you like a very good customer, even if you don't buy. Like I say in my commercial, where your treasures are solid gold. And I think that's about what we want to do. Keith, anything you want to say?
Yeah, one thing I was going to say, I want to tie the whole conversation back together. And in the beginning, we talked about place, talked about Paterson, we talked about it being the center of the Industrial Revolution. And I think that what we're experiencing right now is the Industrial Revolution is kind of on its last legs, right?
Yes.
And a lot of the production and a lot of the products and services that came out are getting a bit obsolete. And I think that that's kind of one of the things you want to tie into.
The mechanical world. Basically, the Industrial Revolution was a mechanical world.
Yeah.
Where machines that can save you labor. Where they came with not in Paterson, but the car was invented by Henry Ford. That changed everything. The telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell. The Colt revolver, the Paterson. Holland submarine, which we'll talk about in the future. But all of these items were mechanical devices because that's where the world was. So they put all their thoughts together, and that was the Industrial Revolution, and really technology, because there was nothing here before in the 1900s that you could use. From plowing your field, you had to do it mechanically with a horse. They built newer machines, labor savers. That was really what was called the Industrial Revolution. And now things have changed. As Keith said, it's high technology. As I said before, he went to California. Those folks start getting high technology. I can go into all of those people that manufacture that stuff. We're not going to do that in this segment. But we'll talk about the devices that they made, which migrated to the East Coast, which we sell, buy and pawn. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We don't want to bore you too long. I think we've gone on here about 15 minutes.
Let me just finish where I was going with that. Well, I was going with that is that, so this new innovation as this industrial, especially with this area, because we were talking about this area, where this industrial kind of way of life, of the commerce that's around it, is kind of gradually falling. People find themselves out of work because the innovations take away those jobs on the factory, assembly line, all the industrial jobs are there. So the pawn shop is, especially with the 21st century version of the pawn shop that Pawndingo is that it serves as a bridge for these people who, especially in the economy, who are kind of figuring their way into this new landscape. You know, as a bridge, and people come in here, and it's kind of a community establishment where it's, hey, you know, we're flexible in your situations, and hey, you have an item you want to sell, you want something you want to buy, so it's really a very flexible type business, and it's very human, and that's really what you'll see when you come to the Pawndingo Pawn Shop. You'll see all the things from the old last century that are here. You'll see things that are affordable prices, and you'll meet friendly people. And that's really what the message is.
As Keith was saying, that gap, what happened in the 70s, 60s and 70s, really hurt the Paterson area as far as its industrial mecca. What happened was technology was starting, high technology, and the companies were now, bigger companies are now subcontracting out their work or buying their work overseas because it was a lot cheaper than paying the labor. And what happened is that, actually, I hate to say it, the city of Paterson really decayed. And people could not find jobs. But I can tell you myself, first-hand experience, in the 70s, the 80s, I had an electronics manufacturing company. And I could take anyone off the street. I could take a housewife, and I could teach her how to do something. You do this, you do that, so on, mechanical. That all went away. So those housewives and lower-level people were unable to find jobs because all that migration to the west or to the south, to Mexico, or to the globalization
China, India,
caused this thing to happen. And that's why we have people here that need us. They have needs sometimes for small loans to get them by, and we do that for them. And we're happy to do that for them. And they want to buy things that are not, if it's a $500 item, and we could sell something like that for $200, and it's working, it's the same thing, they're very happy. That's the kind of stuff that we do, I think.
Absolutely.
That's all I want to say.
And just the last thing I want to say is that there's a lot of people out there in the economy right now, and I was one of them, you know, and you have this whole stigma kind of growing up where it's like, oh, I totally can't afford this, and I totally could use some help, but I'm afraid of going to get help or go to get a loan or you know, or go to that place to sell something or whatever, but I really need it to pay this bill to get to the next level, and that's kind of what a lot of people are experiencing right now. And that's just making Pawndingo and especially the atmosphere here so relevant. And it's, you know, it's one of those silent things that people aren't really talking about. And that's kind of where this really helps them out in that survival sense of how do I, even though I'm experiencing hard times, or even I'm just being a savvy person, I'm being very savvy with the money or the resources that I do have, and I want to shop at a place and get a good deal as opposed to going to a retail establishment. And that's really what this is becoming. It's becoming, because there's a store here too, which we really want to tell people. So another thing that, in the purpose of this podcast and just in general, what we're trying to do and tell the story is that the stigma of going to a pawn shop, we want to eradicate it. We want to eradicate it, and there's no shame in going here. It's a great place. It's awesome. There's awesome people. There's awesome stuff.
Just look at our website and look at everything that we have and all the items that we have.
And you got Bernie Cool. And you got Bernie Cool. You know, Bernie Cool's here, and he's a cool guy. And you're gonna learn stuff. You know, like just like he's talking about. So you come in, not only you get a great story about the history or see some really cool items, but you're gonna get a good deal.
We help people. Something. Basically, the most primitive form of business that was ever invented. You know, barter trade, this endless, limitless options you have here.
Actually, it was one of the first banks. The only way people could get money, they couldn't borrow from banks.
Collateral.
So
no need for a credit check.
They may have pawned their chickens, because they needed something else. And when they did their other crops or whatever they were doing, they go back and they made their money. They go back to the pawnbroker and get the chickens, whatever item. Like I said, we've had a great time here, and like I always say, we are the Pawndingo Pawn Shop where your treasures are solid gold. Take care.
Good.